Hey Dunchbags, what's going on? It's LandonRemixes here, and welcome to my review of the new album from Steve Aoki. This one's called Neon Future 2, and this is a sequel to 2014's Neon Future 1, and that album was definitely one of the most cringy releases of 2014, without a doubt. And I was really hoping to get something a little better with this release, and I think I definitely wasn't disappointed completely. It was about what I was expecting, and I was wishing for a little bit more coming from the American DJ and producer who's known for throwing cakes into audiences and spraying booze, but essentially the overshadow of this album is commercial EDM, and I was really hoping for a little bit more. There's an awesome track he was working on with Knife Party called Pile Driver. I heard that was going to be out on Neon Future, and when it wasn't out on the first half, I was really hoping it would be on the second, and it also wasn't. That probably would have swayed my opinion of the album a lot more, but the way it worked out, it just wasn't very good at all, and I'm going to get into this a little bit, but probably save your money on this one. And if you really love the album, you should probably just exit out of this review now and not dislike it. Just leave, because I'm going to talk about the reasons why I didn't really like this record, and the reasons why the very few reasons why I did like this record. So let's get into this. I'm basically going to ignore the intro and interludes, although I do want to touch base on that a little. The fact that the last two interludes, or the interlude and the outro of the album, Steve Aoki halfway through decides to theme this album on the movie Interstellar, and I didn't really understand that much. He features J.J. Abrams and Kip Thorne on this. I guess as soon as he saw Interstellar, he wanted to include those guys in his album for some reason. So completely going off the train that Neon Future 1 was on, he decided to just make this sequel album halfway through based on that movie instead. So he even calls this first interlude track Tars, which is named after the robot in Interstellar. And really, like, I think if he would have, even if he would have centered this album, maybe done something completely different, not had anything to do with Interstellar, but used more of the sound that was in the interlude tracks and not the intro, because I hated the intro. I usually like it, but I hated it on this one. I'm not going to talk about it because it was an intro, even though it's a full track. It's still an intro, whatever. If he would have focused a little more on an ambient electronic sound, I think he would have gotten a little more success with this record, instead of the more commercial direction he went. I Love It When You Cry, Moxoki, the collab with Moxie Raya. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not, but heard that a few months ago on the Ultra Music Festival soundtrack, I think it was, and wasn't really in love with it. It feels like it's trying too hard to be an emotional progressive house song, but it just doesn't really live up. And the way Steve Aoki works, I just wish he'd try to push for something. If he's going to make something different than he usually makes, I just wish he'd try it. But I did like this track. It does have a very nice melody. The lyrics are a bit cringy when it's talking about a girl talking to a guy about how she loves it when he cries, and it's just kind of weird because it's just not something you really sing about. So kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone a little, which I guess wasn't terrible, but I didn't really like that lyrical message. The absolutely cringy track with Snoop Lion, just ignore that one. Was truly disappointed with the track with Matthew Coma. Of course, his vocals come through like always. Matthew's one of my favorite vocalists out there, especially in the EDM world, but he's had a lot of good singles by himself, and I think he's starting a bit of a DJ career now, so hoping he doesn't go down this commercial route, which I already feel like he has, but I really want to hear more of his guitar-y, kind of cool, not hipster music, but just pop-sounding stuff that he does, and I really like those. But this track, it just sounds a little too commercial. I feel like Steve Aoki is still trying to push for that big room sound, even though that's kind of already died, and maybe I would have even liked it if he would have brought a future house sound, but he didn't really do that with this record. One of my favorite tracks, Darker Than Blood with Linkin Park. I actually like this one better than his first collab with Linkin Park, A Light That Never Comes. Of course, not more than the Vice Tone remix, because that was absolute EDM gold, but I definitely like this one better. It's got a kind of cool synth with the drop, more of a progressive house style when the last one was more of an electro style. Definitely cool, and I did like not necessarily the vocals on this one as much as the first run around, but production-wise and instrumentalization-wise, I think this was definitely better than A Light That Never Comes was. Going to talk about a couple other ones that I like. There was the collab with Walk Off the Earth, who did the Net Somebody That I Used to Know video a couple years ago. They got really big for that, but I guess Steve Aoki kind of jumped on the train a little bit late to collab with these guys. But it's definitely a good track. I think it has more of an Avicii style. It highly reminded me of The Nights by Avicii, and maybe a couple other indie tracks from Scotty McCreery and people like that. Kind of sounded a little more like that, but then still had an EDM influence, and I definitely enjoyed this collaboration, one of my favorites. That one's called Home Will Go, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. Other than that, there's really not much I liked. There's another track, Heaven on Earth, which I actually quite a bit liked, but I didn't think it was super unique. Other than that, like, I really didn't see a lot of gold in this album, and I did like the interludes, and I liked how those kind of went in. And I don't think this album was absolutely as cringy as Neon Future 1 was, but definitely not a great album by any means, and definitely save your money on this one. If you're going to get a couple tracks, get the Linkin Park collab, get the Walk Off the Earth collab, and then basically ignore the rest of it. Maybe get Aoki too. But other than that, this album really wasn't worth it. And I'm going to give this a 3.5 because the way I saw Alice in Wonderland's album, which I've said before that I don't really want to compare stuff, but the way that I'm going to work Alice in Wonderland's album, there's one song I really loved. This one had a couple more that I liked about as much as I liked that one track on that album. I think a 3.5 is very deserving. There's a lot of cool production on this, but it just didn't really live up to what I was expecting. And even though I did expect something not entirely amazing, I was probably expecting a little bit more than we ended up getting, especially with the Knife Party collab that was not finished that I really wanted to happen on this record. So, bit disappointing, but not much can be expected from a producer like Steve Aoki, who doesn't really put out this album in an entire theme like an album should be, put out into more of a concept. Well, this album's kind of just a scattered mess of commercial EDM, and that's what I think about this record. It doesn't really deserve anything higher than a 3.5 in my opinion. I was even thinking a 3, but I thought a 3.5 would be a little more fitting for this record. So anyway, what do you guys think about the album? Make sure to listen through it. If you haven't yet, I won't put buy links in the description because he's already got enough money off his music. Probably doesn't really need the support because he's one of the highest paid DJs out there in America and performs at countless amounts of festivals. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this little review, and I'll see you guys next time.